I'm Lynda Kinkade at the CNN Centre. We want to update you on some other stories developing around the world this hour. And it is a landmark day for US President Joe Biden and his attempt to reshape American foreign policy. We've seen a flourish of actions aimed at tackling his key diplomatic priorities, focusing on Russia, China and the Middle East. And already we've had news of sweeping new sanctions on Russia. President Biden will make a statement on these at the White House in a matter of hours. He's also dispatched his top diplomat, Antony Blinken, to the Afghan capital after announcing a new timeline for withdrawing US troops. While this is going on, Mr. Biden's climate envoy, John Kerry, is in Shanghai for talks on the environment. And while nuclear talks with Iran are also underway, we're going to begin with Russia. And Russia is already promising to retaliate for new US sanctions announced just today. The White House says they're meant to deter what it calls Russia's harmful foreign activities, including cyber attacks and election interference. The US is sanctioning dozens of people at least 6 companies, as well as expelling 10 Russian officials from Moscow's embassy in Washington. It's also blocking US financial institutions from trading in Russian bonds. The U.S. National Security Advisor tells CNN President Joe Biden considers these new sanctions proportionate measures to defend American interests.
His goal is to provide a significant and credible response, but not to escalate the situation. He believes that the United States and Russia can have a stable and predictable relationship, that there are areas where we can work together, like arms control, and that the U.S. and Russia should sit down together at the leaders' level in a summit between President Biden and President Putin to discuss all of the issues facing our relationship. And we believe that all together, both the actions we are taking today and that broader diplomacy can produce a better set of outcomes for U.S.-Russia relations.
Our international diplomatic editor, Nic Robertson, is in London, and Kylie Atwood is at the U.S. State Department, and they join me now live. Good to have you both with us. Nic, I want to start with you first. So the U.S. has hit Russia with a host of financial sanctions, plus the expulsion of Russians. In terms of punishment, how does this fare? Is this enough to curtail Russian interference?
Russia's had the message very clearly coming from the White House, much more strongly under President Biden than President Trump, not to interfere in U.S. elections as they did in 2016. And they went ahead and did it anyway in 2020. And there is an assessment that this won't be enough to put Russia off from these kind of actions again. And I think we got a sense of that in 2 ways. A Russian diplomat at the UN tweeted saying that the U.S. putting sanctions on Russia was really preventing or missing the last opportunity to head off the clash of superpowers. And at the end of that tweet, and these were the key words, he said, "Not our choice," and presenting Russia, in essence, as the victim here, where the reality is, of course, President Biden is applying sanctions because of what Russia has done to the United States. So that's a clear way that the lesson is not learned. And I think we're going to see that as well, and we're hearing it from the Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, who said very clearly that there is going to be, reciprocal actions taken. This will be rebuffed. There's going to be a reaction. So the next step from here is for Russia to respond, perhaps with expulsion of diplomats. That's not clear. That they haven't announced anything yet, but they've made it very clear that they will. So in this regard, Russia's first response is not to adjust its behavior. It's going to be to respond in some fashion, diplomatically, financially, whatever way it feels that it can challenge the United States. But I think the key point coming from the Foreign Ministry was that the United States, this is what Maria Zakharova said, the United States doesn't recognize that we now live in a multipolar world, that the United States is no longer a hegemonic power, which is, in essence, a direct challenge to the United States. You cannot tell us what to do. You're not the big kid on the block anymore.
Yeah, certainly some interesting words there, Nick. I want to go to the State Department, Kylie, because we did know that Russia was obviously warned that this was coming, that US President Biden had a discussion with the Russian leader, and he was told that this was likely to happen.
Yeah, I think that's demonstrative of the fact that, you know, the White House has repeatedly said that they're going to be tough on Russia when they need to. They are going to respond firmly to these malign actions by Russia, which have undermined the United States, the American people, and U.S. allies. But they also want to maintain dialogue with Russia. And so in order to do so, they think there's, you know, a need to be a bit transparent here. So President Biden explained to President Putin that there were actions coming later this week during their phone call. And he also proposed that the two world leaders get together for a world summit. Now, of course, this is something that we haven't heard a firm response back on from Russia, but I think, you know, it goes to show that this White House has repeatedly said today, as they have rolled out, you know, these tremendous punishments on Russia, that they also don't want to escalate things with Russia. And that gets to Nick's point, which is that, you know, the Russians are already pointing to the U.S. side and saying that they are escalating things. And it's not Russia's fault. It's the United States' fault. So we're already beginning to see kind of this back and forth tit for tat that happens a lot in U.S.-Russia relations. The Biden administration is hoping essentially that they can get out of that tradition, but it's really yet to be determined. And I think one thing we should note is that the U.S. has also said today, as they have rolled out these sanctions, that they have the tools in place to crank it up if they need to. So, for example, on these financial restrictions on U.S. companies that kind of hit at Russia's economy, it was very clear. A senior administration official said today that the executive order that President Biden signed would enable the Biden administration to be more forceful in that realm if they wanted to down the line. So they're sending a clear signal that they don't want to ramp things up, but they are prepared to if they need to.
All right, Kylie Atwood for us at the State Department, and Nic Robertson in London. Thank you both very much.